Hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Tara Allgood. I also am known by Tu or Tutakana. I answer to both. So I'm the host of the Crystal Dungeon. It's a radio show on Blog Talk Network. It's put out by Gateway Radio Network. We'll be switching over next month to a brand new platform, which I'm very excited about. But on Crystal Dungeon, we discuss all sorts of mysterious and metaphysical information. It is definitely not your regular radio show. Anyway, I also do intuitive services. I offer intuitive readings. I also do spiritual counseling, basically intuitive guidance to assist people who are on their own path of spiritual development and what is commonly called ascension. I'm personally not super fond of that term because I think it's misleading, and that misleading term leads to some confusion, which can actually be quite problematic when you get into these realms. Descension would actually be more accurate, since what you're doing when you go through spiritual transformation or spiritual rebirth is you are allowing basically your soul to be reborn, to allow the Christ in your heart to take full bloom and participate in a transfiguration or an ascension, just kind of like in the image of Christ, okay? So there's a lot of people going through this who don't even understand what it is they're going through, who follow the Christian path. One of my major focuses is to assist Christians who have these spiritual gifts, the gift of healing, the gift of discerning spirits, the gift of tongues, things like that, and they maybe don't understand how to use it appropriately because there's not always a lot of training available in the churches, for sure. But I'm also aiming to reach people outside of the Christian path who walk any other path, as long as their path is a belief in the Creator of all, a love for the Creator first and foremost, and a love for one another secondary. If that's your heart, then you live by the law of Christ, and you are looking for the truth. You're looking for the truth, and you're looking for freedom, and you're looking for your own expression in this world of your true divinity, that the part of you that is pure, that is in God, that is able to express godlike attributes. And so what I'm attempting to do is talk about spiritual discernment and the use of our ESP, of what is commonly called psychic gifts, what Christians call spiritual gifts, how to use it with discernment. It's not as easy as it sounds. And there's a lot of people out there who, whether they're religious or non-religious, they're empathic. They naturally love others and naturally have a love for their source. And they're opening up, and they realize, or they were born with sensitivities. So the problem with this is that the basics about how to use those sensitivities without getting sucked into basically a false spiritual program, or what is a spiritual illusion, losing your sovereignty. The extreme, most gross example being what we call those who have sold or lost their soul. We can lose and trade off pieces of ourselves without, literally making a deal with the devil. We can allow other energies, intelligences, and beings to come in and usurp our individual sovereign God-given authority, our birthright. As a human, in the image of God, with an individuated soul, if we give our power over to another, we choose to use our free will to allow our power to be usurped. Now, a lot of the beings and groups out there who are involved in doing this to awakening individuals and sensitives know exactly what they're doing. And so that's why it's very important to me that I become a part of not necessarily the battle against all the people out there doing what I perceive to be wrong or a violation of free will or your individual sovereignty, but instead I'm going to focus on what I'd like to see more of and what I think we could create in the face of those things to make things better. So we're going to focus on how it should be instead of on how we don't want it to be. Because Where our attention goes, energy flows. So let's focus on the solution instead of the problem. In general, I prefer to remain pretty neutral towards evil, towards other beings. Not that I'm complacent, don't get me wrong. Get to know me, you'll know that's not true. However, I do not believe in judgment, true judgment. You do not sit in condemnation over another being, okay? You allow God to do that. And that's important because you're not perfect and I'm not perfect. And we're asking for spiritual enlightenment, spiritual rebirth, eternal life in God's presence. We're asking for ourselves not to be judged for our imperfections. So it's very important we don't do it to others, especially when sometimes what we think is imperfection is part of a larger plan that we can't comprehend. So in insulting somebody, we might be insulting the Creator's plan, you know? So it's not about that. It's about, let's talk about what we can do to be in control ourselves and make individual decisions that free our minds, free our souls, and free our lives from not just religious dogma and fear, but New Age BS and propaganda and spiritual delusion, because there's plenty of that out there. There's also, and it's Halloween that I'm recording this, so it's it's very appropriate. Witches and warlocks and ghosts, oh my! Vampires and fairies. These things are a lot more real than most believe. And so when you come into a realization that you have psychic abilities, or that you would like to develop them, either way, and you begin to realize that you're sensing things that are real on some level, maybe not in the physical realm, but they have their own reality. It's super important that we learn discernment. That we, just like in our day-to-day life, as we're walking around in the world, we can't pay attention to every little piece of information that is going into our unconscious mind. You can't drive your car and know all the letters on everyone's license plate, every single sign on the sides of the roads and what they say. You have to hone in on what's important and block out the rest in order to perform. And when you live with ESP, when you live with your psychic sensitivities, your spiritual gifts open, depending on you will experience information input from different various planes of reality. And it's up to you to also be the driver, be in charge of the car, hone in on what's important, and drive. And you can't let anybody else off the street just come in and drive your car either, because this is your car. You pay the insurance, you make the payment, it's the only one you got. And of course, I'm using that as a metaphor for yourself, your body and your soul, your mind and your heart. It's yours. So that's, before I'll go with this first. There are a few major types of psychic senses. These are not a complete list. These are just the crux of the sensory input. Okay? The basics. So, clairvoyance. Clairvoyance simply means psychic sight. It means that you have your third eye open, your pineal and pituitary glands, and your brain is functioning properly in alignment with your hypothalamus, and you're able to discern information that is coming through psychic light, or what we call astral light. It's from the astral plane. It's the plane of your dreams, where you go to dream is the easiest way to convey this. You do not need your physical body to go there, but your spirit, your astral body, the part of you that has your emotions and memories, that does not need the body, okay? That part of you is able to be aware of messaging and sight, things that you see inside your mind's eye, inside your third eye. So it's not like, if someone's clairvoyant, it's not like you necessarily see physical manifestations of the spiritual realm. That would actually be very confusing. You wouldn't be able to find your way around the physical if it was like that all the time. Mostly what we're referring to is psychic sight in your mind's eye, so that your physical eyes are still perceiving the physical realm, but your mind's eye is able to see visions inside your mind, and you're able to notice the detail and recognize the patterning, the messaging to it. Now, you could see words, you could see colors, You could see symbols, you could see images, you could see full-on short films. Anything you can imagine visually, you can see in your third eye, okay? Clairaudience is simply psychic hearing. So same concept, you're just tuning in to the non-physical realms, non-physical planes. You're witnessing things. However, the way you are translating the energy into your brain is in a sense that is just like hearing. You'll hear words, you'll hear conversations, you'll hear things, songs maybe, or music. That's called clairaudience. It's not your physical ears, it's your spiritual ears. And if you're clairaudient, you'll know the difference. You'll understand this is not a physical sound that I'm hearing. It's almost like when you know you're hearing your thoughts, you can kind of hear your thoughts. It's along those lines, but a little bit stronger. But it's not the same frequency as a physical sound. However, you can become sensitive to it and so attuned that you can get as much information that way as you could from someone sitting next to you. Clairsentience. People who realize they are empathic, who didn't necessarily know about this stuff. Oftentimes the reason they come to the conclusion, hey, I do have psychic gifts, I am empathic, it's because they realize they're taking on other people's feelings. It's like, wow, I'm so sensitive to other people's feelings, and she was crying and I cried. Or I realized when I walk in a room, if someone was just arguing or there was negative stuff going on, I pick it up right away. I feel yucky, I feel uncomfortable. I'm so sensitive to other people, it makes me sick when they're sick, stuff like that. That's usually how people imagine an empath to be, and that's true. But at the same time, your clairsentience is the gift of psychic feeling. So it's a feeling sensation. Like when I do readings for someone, when I do my spiritual guidance, my intuitive counseling, my intuitive readings, I can feel into them, and I might feel what they're feeling, or I might feel what somebody is feeling that they're talking to me about, so I can help convey the other side of the story to them so they can come to a solution. That's clairsentience. Clairsentience can become actually very fine-tuned and profound to where it operates like sonar, like Batgirl. You know, it's literally like you can feel in waves things, and at that level, you may even have that feeling of wave form changed into an image or translated into a sound, so that you sense something, and at the same time, bam, an image in your head, bam, a word in your ear, your psychic ears and psychic eyes, not your physical, accompanied with a feeling, and you learn to put it all together, and you have a full-blown message, you have a full-blown map of something going on. So the other gift is claircognizance. Claircognizance is that stereotypical mother's gut feeling, woman's intuition. Oh, I just had a gut feeling. I just was punched in the gut and I just knew. I just knew I couldn't go in there today. That's claircognizance. It can also operate at a slightly more advanced level where, like for instance, doing a reading or something like I do, I may have my gift of claircognizance kick in where I just suddenly know stuff. I don't know how I know it. I'm not seeing, I'm not hearing, I'm not necessarily feeling. I just know, and I'm just talking as if I took this class and I majored in it and I graduated with honors. Because in that moment, I know it's the truth, and I just know it, and it's coming from a place I can't explain. Just like that sudden gut feeling that says, don't go in the store today, you know, or don't leave your house, or take an alternate route, or whatever. That's claircognizance. So those are the four kind of main primary gifts that sort of empaths, mediums. Most of the time our impressions and the information we're working with comes from some various combination of these four. There is more stuff, and I'll talk about that in another series, but we're mostly going to focus on the crux of things and the basics about discernment and about navigating and interpreting the information that you're picking up, the impressions that you're picking up, determining whether or not it's actually relevant to you or helpful for you, Or is this just fluff? Is this just static? Because when you are sensitive and you open up your ESP, unless you take care and you learned how to close down and open up and, turn off and turn on, you're going to be bringing in all sorts of things and picking up on all sorts of things. And even when you do turn off and turn on, there's still a chance that you'll get, a little bit of overload. This is why, and especially if you're in a crowd of people or around a lot of people, you're going to pick up on their stuff. You're going to pick up on stuff in the collective. You're going to pick up on things from technology if you work around computers and TV, movies. Like, those things have a life force of their own, and they exist on some non-physical plane that you can't pick up with your psychic gifts. They can't actually tune into those things. So it's very important that we know how to utilize our gifts to our highest good. We have to function in the real world. This is a physical realm. It's all we have. This is our reality, basically, as far as any sort of physical existence goes. We're all here sharing it, okay? To be successful in it, to be safe in it, to be abundant in it, we have to function within it. So obviously, if we are picking up all sorts of psychic information tuned into this reality and that reality, and if we saw every single thing that exists in the energetic field around us, throughout time, even in the location we're standing in, it would be overwhelming. It would be way too much sensory input. That's not helpful. In fact, there are plenty of people sitting in mental institutions with the label of schizophrenia on them who are really suffering from this problem. They are blown open and they are taking in so much stuff and they are confused, lost in space and time. They cannot orient anymore, and they are just bringing in and interacting with everything. And then the confusion on top of it tends to attract actual entities at times. And if the person's being traumatized, being drugged, being treated badly, or held against their will, or not getting the type of therapy they need, or anything like that, it could be even more of a problem. So just to throw that out there, that's why it's super important that if you delve into these realms and you are playing with this stuff and opening it up into it and coming into it, that you recognize the basics, how to drive the car, how to operate the vehicle, how to be a defensive driver, how to screen out distraction, and how to use your best judgment. That's what the video series I'm putting together is going to be about. This right now is just an introduction to it. It's an invitation for you to submit questions for me to answer, for you to get clarity that you might need on any of those topics. So I do want to also talk about my agenda, because everyone has an agenda. If you're an individual being, I don't care if you're incarnate or disincarnate, if you have an individual identity and a sense of self, you are on some sort of agenda. People who present themselves as spiritual teachers and who disseminate this type of information that I am attempting to do myself it's very common that they are serving some sort of agenda that really has nothing to do with you, and you don't necessarily need to have anything to do with it. And unfortunately, when we go out there to seek out information about how to utilize our gifts, we are not given a lot of basics, just the basic tools, which is what I'm going to be helping with. The spiritual truths beyond the dogma, beyond the spiritual paradigms, beyond the spiritual programs and delusions. The truth, the simple tools that will allow you to make, create, carve, and journey on your own path without being duped, without being guided off of it by some other intelligence that has an agenda, which is not actually your agenda for yourself, which is your highest good. It's your spiritual development. It's your children, your husband, your wife, your family. It's your life, and then out. Other beings you come across are going to have their own agendas too, and it's going to be similar to that, and then add whatever else is going on. Spiritual beings have their own agendas too. That's why one of the most important things that I aim to teach people is when your gifts are open and you pick up on this stuff, you can't listen to everything. It doesn't mean you let it all in. It doesn't mean you pay it all mind or attention. That will be extremely confusing, and it will ultimately lead you down a schizoid, delusional path that can psychologically damage you. So my agenda as an individuated being and as a human, and with doing this, so you can make a choice as to whether or not to interact with me or listen to my videos or ask me questions or value my opinion or consider it even, is this. My agenda is to promote spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional sovereignty, individuation, and freedom. It's about liberty, and it's about individuation. It's about you being a unique individual, you knowing how to dive in and bring forward your true parts, your true self, your true gifts, your potential, to connect with the creator, with the beautiful powers of the universe, with the spirits that serve the creation, and with one another at a level where you are authentic, and you are free, and you are sovereign, and you don't need to have their approval to be you. And you don't need to force your agenda on them to be you or feel fulfilled. And you don't need to have an intermediary between you and your creator telling you what to do to fulfill the will of the creator, or in your life to fulfill your own will. You don't need an intermediary. You already have that connection within, via your soul, via the Christ Spirit, straight to the creator. That Holy Ghost, as it's called. When we listen to that and are willing to face truths, hard truths, and face ourselves, we don't need fairy tales. But the minute we open up our spiritual gifts, we're going to get a whole lot of intelligences and spiritual entities that are, the first thing they're going to do is tell us fairy tales. They're going to fill our heads with ideas that are fantasy or that feel good, that we can ponder on in order to get our submission, basically, in order to get us to believe in their reality, their spiritual reality, and to play a part in it, to usurp our authority, and to ultimately drive our car for us. That's not the plan. We are ministered to by angels on this planet when we're following the Creator and we're living by the law of love. We will be ministered to by angels, by all sorts of spirits and beings. And it's okay to have interaction, but it is not okay to go and put an outside intelligence in between you and your source if you're looking for true individuated freedom at a spiritual level, sovereignty, and empowerment, and true soul embodiment. It's not necessary. It's a trick, and it's a trap. So how do we discern that stuff? And how do we know the difference between a true spirit guide, a true angelic visitation, a true ancestor communicating with us, and the difference between a spiritual deception? We're going to be talking about this more in this series. We're going to be getting down to the nitty-gritty of how to handle your gifts, how to discern the information, how to live in a way that serves your sovereignty and your freedom, and the love of your Creator, and the love that lives in your heart, and the love that is the law of love, okay? But we're going to call out the illusions and the deception, because there's a lot you have to understand. Every single being has their own agenda. We are impacted by the astral, which is the emotional plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual planes. And all those realities are happening through us now, with us now. Our perception is honed into the physical. Living with your spiritual gifts open is wonderful. It will allow for you to have a more full life experience, to perceive life and reality from a much deeper level, to enjoy a deeper sense of peace, to let go of anxiety, to know you are guided, to have faith because you know God is watching over you, helping you. Your soul is completely guided and loved and supported here. But what we don't want to do is, out of naivety or lack of training and information, fall into some of these very common spiritual traps out there, which come masquerading as angels of light, as positive guidance, as loving people, loving souls, and it's really a dupe to usurp your energy, to drive the car for you, and to have you let go of your individual sovereignty and your authority. Because when you stand in your sovereignty and you stand in your authority and your freedom in your own self, in your own soul, via your creator, without anybody else's permission and approval and hierarchies and agendas or light teams or federations or spirit guides or whatever, then you really come into the true knowingness that you are a child of God. You are an authority. You have that right. You are in the image of God. And you are the one creating your reality. You are the one creating the potentials and the probabilities. Of course, there is a larger plan and a larger view. But you are co-creating through your free will how you experience that, how you interact with it to a very large degree. When you use your free will to give your attention and your trust to spiritual voices or impressions that are telling you it's for your own good, that are telling you it's going to lead you to a happier life or give you what you're looking for, but you don't have a roadmap and you don't have a owner's manual explaining how to know if those voices are really coming from the right place, you're going to run into a lot of trouble. That's very common. It's what's happened to a lot of people. That's why I'm doing this, to help people come into themselves, to learn to trust their own connection, their own gut instinct, to give them some clues and hints about how to recognize some key red flags about a spiritual teacher, could actually be leading you down the wrong path or usurping your free will. We might call that, Sherpaism or Guruism, or a cult leader. Ultimately, it can be if you allow these people to insert their spiritual reality into your mind and your heart, instead of you having the ability to discern your reality yourself. It's a very dangerous game. Once you open these doors, you can be influenced at very deep psychological levels, especially if you're dealing with witches and warlocks and ghosts, oh my, okay? Not everyone here is as naive as the majority think everyone is. And there's a lot of people on the planet who do have these senses, have for generations, and use it to do harm. Use it to manipulate. Use it to control. Use it to usurp on purpose for various reasons. That's their agenda. That's why it's so important, I stress, that you are aware of the agenda of other beings before you take on what they're saying to heart. And even when you do, you need to discern it yourself. Even the information I give out, I'm asking you, sit with it. Go inside, look at it. Give it up to your higher self, to your connection to God. Be honest, but disagree if you need to. Take something and leave the other. That's not what's important to me. I don't care if you have the same worldview I do, or if you think the same thing is going to happen in the future as I do, or you think this spirituality is one. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is that you work out what you believe on your own terms, without influence, without manipulation. And there's some tools that I know I have that I can help distribute to others who can benefit from it, to find their own way, without me being in the middle either. Just a mentor, just a friend saying, hey, I've been on this journey for a while. I'm a student here on planet Earth too, student of the Creator. But I'm also probably, assistant teacher level at this point, because I've been on this path for a long time and I've had a unique opportunity to basically focus the past 11 years on my spiritual transformation, mostly my healing, my ascension, my discernment, my recovery. I experienced a lot. I've been through a lot. I've been exposed to a lot of things that most people think only happens in a Harry Potter movie. That's why I know what I know. And the funny thing is that the more you know about the occult, the more complex it gets, the more important the simple truths become. That's what will guide you home. That's what will guide you up the mountain. That's what will lead us back to the right light. The right light. Not just the white light, but the right light. The light of your own soul. The light of your own source. So that's it. I think I basically have covered what I wanted to, who I am. I'm not your Sherpa. I'm not your guru. I don't want power or control over anyone. I don't want to manipulate anybody, and I'm not perfect. Okay? I want to share the things I've learned because I know they're powerful, and I know my experiences, and my experience is rare. I know my level of discernment is advanced. And I know there's a lot of people out there with really advanced and amazing gifts and amazing hearts and amazing passion. And it's just a shame that when you go out on the internet and, into social media and things like that, looking for information, it is very hard to get very simple, basic, foundational, protective tools and truths to assist you, some guidelines, so that when you come up to a teacher, or potential healer, or a hypnotist, or whoever, whether or not they're going to serve your best interests or their own. And in my whole mission, my whole agenda with this series is to assist you with having the confidence and the ability to, number one, accept and recognize you have the right to be in charge, to assert your individual sovereignty, to protect your individual sovereignty, even when you're advancing spiritually. You do not need to give your authority up to an intercessor, to an angel, to some outside spirit, to a religion. You need to learn about the spiritual truths that lie behind all of those dogmas, because there are foundational spiritual truths. They're called universal laws or universal principles. It's the same truths that the creation was designed upon, and without, the creation would not exist. And it does come down to the law of love. Love God, your God, with all your heart and all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. And so if you have come into your own psychic senses, or you're working with that, or even if you've been on the path for a long time, on the ascension path, and you have had maybe various guides, spirit guides, angel guides, and you're having problems, you're not feeling fulfilled, or you feel like something's off, or you're missing a part of yourself, or you feel like you've been made promises or been given visions that aren't really coming true, and you're starting to feel like, a dog chasing after a carrot on a stick, please, I welcome you. Join this series. Send me questions. You can comment. You can send me a private message on Facebook. My name is Tara, T-A-R-A, all good, just like it sounds. My page is called The Crystal Dungeon as well. You can look that up. You can message me, send your questions. I'm happy to answer. After this series, where we'll cover the basic 4 gifts and the very basic sort of spiritual truths that can guide you with discernment and how to stave off and recognize interference. After that, we'll also be talking about astral projection. That is a more advanced spiritual ability. A lot of people do have it, though, and they've already become able to do it, and without the training or knowledge of basic safety, which is causing actually more problems for them. And so I feel like putting out some information out there to help assist with that, getting people some of the clarity that they need so they can fix things for themselves and use their gift in a way that actually serves their higher self and not causing more problems for them. To me, it's just about asking for honesty, asking for truth, asking for freedom, and for love. Nothing I'm saying has anything to do with people who are looking to serve themselves, who are what you would call a Satanist, or even Luciferian. This is not about working outside of the will of the Creator for your soul. This is not about teaching you how to have power over other people or cast a spell to get the love of your life. It's not about making you promises that you can have whatever you desire and what you imagine in your life. Life doesn't work that way, I'm sorry. Life is and can be very magical, that's true. And we can have a much better life than we would ever imagine possible by living in Creator's law Okay? Miracles will and do happen. But it will be a higher will and not just the vain imaginations of your ego, because what will happen with that is if you just start creating everything you imagine you desire, you start creating a whole world that actually didn't necessarily serve your highest good. And all of that world has to be undone and has to come crashing down before you can make any true advancement. And in order to have true advancement and true maturity and true power in this realm of spiritual gifts, psychic gifts, things like that, you have to do the inner work. You have to face yourself. You have to be willing to face others, face what you see, face your feelings, face your shadow, and take responsibility and be discerning. And when you do come into that true sovereignty, true discernment, true maturity, and wisdom over time, your abilities will become even stronger. You have to be able to handle that. So what happens is a lot of people open up their primary gifts. They get out there on this, the internet and stuff like that. They get sucked into groups and teachings and things that are opening up all sorts of occult doors into their unconscious and into their energy field, into the spiritual realms, giving them practices, giving them teachings that actually are not in alignment with their sovereignty. So they're opening up to more things than is actually in their best interest, doing themselves more harm, which impedes the process of spiritual development, which literally cuts off the psychic ability development. So you cannot progress. Because you cannot progress until you're able to do it responsibly. You create too much karma, you could create harm, and it's just simply how it works. So to experience the true, higher gifts, like astral projection and this, these really impressive powers, so to speak, you have to be able to land the lower ones the right way in order to truly experience those in a way that is not just an illusion, but is actually coming from spirit and working in alignment with higher will and working in alignment with your soul and bringing a healing and regenerative element into your life instead of a confusing and destructive one, which is what happens when we get drawn into spiritual practices and spiritual realities with our psychic senses that have that exist outside of what the Creator has ordained for us. So that's it. I look forward to questions, and I'll be doing this series of videos throughout the week, and we'll be taking a little bit of this one piece at a time. Okay? We're going to talk about all those types of psychic gifts, and we're going to talk about the basics of how to get yourself into a place where you know the difference between what's a thought, what's an imagination, what is true higher guidance, what is deception. And it's not very easy, no. But if you want to live this type of life, or if it's who you are, then you must learn. You got to learn how to drive the car, and you want to know how to do it safely. And that's all I want for you. So be very blessed, and I look forward to any questions that anybody has, and I look forward to doing more of these types of instructional videos for others. Thank you.